If you've only watched the Lord of the Rings movies, you might think you know everything about Gandalf. But there's a whole world of fascinating details about the Grey Wizard that Peter Jackson simply couldn't fit into his films. Today I'm going to share 5 incredible facts about Gandalf that will completely change how you see this beloved character. Some of these might seem surprising, especially if you've never read Tolkien's books, but I guarantee they'll give you a much deeper appreciation for the complexity of Middle-earth's most famous wizard. Let's dive right in. First, let's talk about Gandalf's true identity and what he really is. When you watch the movies, it's easy to assume that Gandalf is simply an old man who happens to be very skilled with magic. Maybe you thought he was a scholar who spent decades studying ancient spells, or perhaps a member of some mysterious guild of magicians. But the truth is far more extraordinary than that. Gandalf isn't human at all. In fact, he belongs to an order of beings called the Istari, but even that's just scratching the surface. The Istari were originally spirits from the Undying Lands, divine beings sent to Middle-earth on a specific mission. Think of them as something like guardian spirits, clothed in the bodies of old men to walk among mortals without revealing their true nature. This explains so much about Gandalf's behaviour throughout the stories. Have you ever wondered why he seems to know things he shouldn't know, or why he appears at exactly the right moment so often? It's because his wisdom comes from a source far beyond human experience. He's not just a wise old man who's lived a long life. He's an immortal being with knowledge that spans ages. Second, Gandalf's relationship with death is completely different from what the movies suggest. When he falls in Moria while fighting the Balrog, most viewers assume he somehow survived the fall or was rescued at the last moment. But that's not what happened at all. Gandalf actually died in that battle. His spirit left his physical form and travelled beyond the circles of the world itself. What's even more remarkable is that he was sent back by Eru Ilúvatar, the supreme deity of Tolkien's universe, with enhanced power and a new mission. This wasn't a near-death experience or a miraculous escape. It was a literal death and resurrection, orchestrated by divine intervention. This transformation from Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White represents far more than just a costume change. When he returns, he's fundamentally different. His power has increased dramatically, his authority has expanded, and his very presence commands respect in a way it never did before. The old Gandalf was wise and helpful, but the White Wizard carries the direct authority of the Creator himself. Third, let's explore something that might blow your mind about Gandalf's memory and knowledge. You might think that when he transformed from grey to white, he simply gained more magical power and that was it. But the reality is much more complex and fascinating. When Gandalf returned as the White Wizard, he didn't just receive a power upgrade. His memories and understanding of his true purpose became clearer and more complete. Before his death, there were limitations placed on what he could remember about his origins and mission. These restrictions were intentionally put in place to ensure the Istari would guide and inspire the peoples of Middle-earth rather than dominate them through overwhelming divine knowledge. After his resurrection, many of these mental barriers were lifted. Gandalf the White had access to wisdom and memories that had been clouded or hidden from Gandalf the Grey. This is why his personality seems more focused and authoritative when he returns. He's not just stronger, he's more aware of who he truly is and what he needs to accomplish. Fourth, here's something the movies completely skip over. Gandalf wasn't the only wizard sent to Middle-earth, and the others have fascinating stories of their own. Most people know about Saruman, who appears in the films as the main antagonist among the wizards. But there were actually 5 Istari sent on this mission, and the fate of the other 2 is both mysterious and tragic. The Blue Wizards, Alatar and Palando, travelled far into the eastern lands of Middle-earth, regions that are never shown or even mentioned in the movies. Their mission was to stir up resistance against Sauron's influence in those distant territories, working behind enemy lines in a sense. But here's the heartbreaking part. They likely failed in their mission. Tolkien himself wrote that these 2 wizards probably fell to corruption, just like Saruman did, but in different ways. Some accounts suggest they became leaders of strange cults or magical societies, using their powers for personal gain rather than the greater good. Others indicate they simply became lost in the vastness of the eastern lands, forgetting their original purpose entirely. This failure of the Blue Wizards makes Gandalf's success all the more remarkable. He was one of only 2 Istari who remained true to their mission, and the only one who actually completed it successfully. When you think about it, the entire fate of Middle-earth hung on the shoulders of this one grey-robed wanderer who chose to stay faithful to his calling. Fifth, there's a crucial detail about Gandalf's limitations that explains many of his actions throughout the story. These 5 facts reveal that Gandalf is far more complex and powerful than the movies ever show us. He's not just a wise old wizard with a staff and some magic tricks. He's a divine being on a sacred mission, someone who literally died and was resurrected by the creator of the universe, and one of the few immortal guardians who stayed true to his calling when others fell to corruption. Understanding these details makes every scene with Gandalf in the movies hit differently. When he speaks with authority, when he seems to know more than he's letting on, when he makes those perfectly timed appearances, it all makes sense now. He's not just lucky or clever, he's operating on a level that the mortal characters around him can't even comprehend. The next time you watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy, pay attention to Gandalf's interactions with other characters. Notice how the elves treat him with special reverence, how even kings defer to his judgment, and how he always seems to be playing a longer game than anyone else realizes. Now you know why. These are just a few of the incredible details that Tolkien packed into his books, but couldn't make it into the films. If these facts surprised you, or made you see Gandalf in a new light, consider diving into the books themselves. There's so much more depth and richness waiting to be discovered. If you enjoyed learning these hidden details about Middle-earth's greatest wizard, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of Tolkien. Until next time, keep exploring the magic.